From being an up-and-coming basketball player with great potential to becoming an unexpected burden on his team, here's why Ben Simmons needs to finally retire, or at least take a break. For starters, he's not the best player for the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, he's bad for every team, really. His season started out bad, but right now, it's downright disastrous. Injury after injury, and more negative attention from the media. The thing is, even before he was brought to the Nets, he wasn't doing well. He didn't show up on a number of games. And when he did, well, let's just say it didn't go so well. But the more surprising thing about this whole situation is, he wasn't always like that. Rewind to a couple of years ago, everybody expected him to go on to be one of the greatest basketball players. After all, not only did he win Rookie of the Year, but he was also a 3-time All-Star. Maybe that's why, even after his attitude and departure from the Sixers, the Nets had high hopes. Well, at least the franchise. The fans weren't that happy even then, but that wouldn't have mattered had Ben been able to reach the expectations placed on him. They were, after all, not that much. The Nets were building a roster that would help them reach the championship. At that time, they had Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And sure, Kevin put on a bit of drama about how he wanted to be traded, but by the time Ben had come around, this had died down. So there you go. He had two of the better players in the NBA on the same team, but he still failed at his job. Ben was supposed to support Kevin and Kyrie, but he managed to mess even that up. And of course, you can't forget about that poorly timed back injury. Yes, I know he had no control over it, but still, it was a crucial time for him. It was probably the only time in his career when he had the chance to fully redeem himself. Maybe not to Sixers fans, but at least to the rest of the basketball community. And right now, well, the damage is irreversible, and you really can't blame basketball fans. Right now, Ben is averaging 3.3 fouls per game, and if you think that's bad, you need to hear the rest of it. His average field goals per game are actually worse. 3.2. Can you believe it? Imagine making more fouls than scores. No wonder so many people are against him. I mean, if he hadn't done everything he did for the last 2 years or so, he'd still be getting a lot of hate for that stat. Maybe not as much as he's getting right now, but it definitely would have been close. I feel really sorry for the Nets fans right now. I mean, not only have they lost both of their best players, they now have to rely on Ben Simmons of all people, the guy who's averaging more fouls than field goals. This has to be one of the most ridiculous situations in basketball yet. And if this isn't the perfect indicator that he needs to go, I don't know what is. Because let me tell you, Ben needs to retire. Sure, the Nets will have to struggle a lot to get to their feet again, but honestly, with the type of crisis they're already in now, I don't think they'll feel much of a difference. And I'm not only saying that he needs to retire because of how he's playing. Actually, it has to do a lot more with why he's playing like that. You see, he himself said he stopped showing up to the Sixers games because of mental health issues. It was all a domino effect from there.
It got to a point where after that series, I'm getting it's like from the people that you're supposed to have the support from or that, that comfort from. And I wasn't getting that either. So it was just a lot. It was a toll on me. And then mentally, it killed me. I was like, no energy for anything. Like I was in a dark place.
And let me tell you, the negative attention definitely hasn't helped him. I mean, sure, he's been playing horribly. And yes, basketball fans, especially the Nets, have every reason to be angry at that. And yes, the Sixers fans have every right to hold a grudge against him. But still, I kind of understand why Ben's been playing so bad lately. He is, after all, under a lot of pressure. Imagine having thousands of people watching your every move for the sole reason of criticism. My guess is that the pressure has gotten to him. This brings us back to the topic of his retirement. Hey, I'm not saying he has to go completely, but at the very least, he needs to take a long break to get both his mental and physical health together. And of course, increase his shooting accuracy, because I think everybody knows by now, social media isn't going to let him go until he manages to get a good field goal average, even if scoring is far from his strengths, and there are other skills that can help. Ben is, after all, a versatile player. He can be a great supporting player, even with terrible shooting. But there's a reason fans are so adamant Ben improves his shooting. He's been bad at shooting since day one, and that's not a bad thing. There have been many basketball players that have been bad at crucial skills, even if they dominated at multiple others. But the difference? These players improved.
Simmons isn't huge as he takes. I like it. 1-foot runner. When he was with Phoenix and they were in the finals, after every game, and he never got to play, as Simmons with a great cut and pass by Durant and missed point blank.
Here's Simmons. Corner sling way off.
They practiced and practiced until they got better, going from bad to acceptable to good, even great. But Ben, it just seems like he doesn't want to improve, like he's given up on trying. And if this wasn't a big enough problem on its own, others have stemmed from it. His lack of commitment or interest in basketball clashes with his teammates. After all, they're trying their hardest to reach the top, to win. The fact that Ben refuses to improve his weaknesses and is so unwilling to shoot really gets to them. Not to mention the fact that he falters under pressure. His inability to perform in clutch situations has cost the team several times already. All of this is starting to get to his teammates. And this isn't the first time. Even when he was with the Philadelphia 76ers, his fellow players spoke negatively about his behavior. Joel Embiid is one of them. So I guess it really isn't a surprise that his team members are already so done with him. But it's still sad to watch him go from a player that teams wanted to this. I mean, just check the difference between his current average score and before. His career high was 17, and while that might not be mind-blowing, it's still pretty good, especially compared to now. I mean, do you remember the game against the Detroit Pistons? Kyrie had 40 goals, while Ben had zero. And already when fans told him to retire after that game, I hope he thought about everything thoroughly and decided he wasn't going to go on like this. There are many things that can happen here. The least likely is some kind of miracle that will suddenly transform him back into a good player. That leaves two plausible options. He leaves basketball, or as a former fellow Australian basketball player Andrew Bogut suggested, he could go see a sports psychologist and get himself together before he continues to pursue his career. Like I mentioned before, Ben's mental health has a lot to do with his current situation. The pressure, the negativity, and the lack of support would have gotten to any person, and he was already struggling with his mental health before this fiasco started.
Money. It's not about the money for me now. Like, I want peace and happiness. Like, I want to be in a good place. And that, if that costs me whatever it's going to cost, that's what it costs. Like, my peace is more valuable than, money.
Or more accurately, it was the reason this fiasco started. But right now, there's nothing we can do but pray the Nets somehow manage, and Ben take some action to fix whatever the hell is going on.
I think you make somebody make a jump shot, but it's not a good sign for Philly with Ben Simmons stepping up and hitting his first free throw. Obviously, the crowd going crazy right now. But we're confident.
But if that doesn't happen, then here's why it's time for him to consider retirement.